Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from etrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Roadmaster diode wiring on a 2024 Ford F-150. And diode wiring is going to be something that's going to be crucial when it comes to setting up your flat tow on any vehicle. And the basic essentials of it is going to be putting a 6-way plug up front, running wires to your taillights, and splicing in, putting diodes in. And that way, when we have an electrical signal from the 7-way on the RV, it'll transmit through our umbilical and eventually back to our taillights. And that's going to give us our running lights, turn signals, as well as brake lights, and keeping us safe and legal in the process. Now, this kit is available in a few different configurations, whether you're just picking up the diodes and the wiring, or if you're getting an umbilical 6-way plug. There's also a few different styles of umbilical that you can pick from, but that's really a good time to pick up any of the components that you might not have gotten with some of your other flat tow stuff. Some of your tow bars will have those umbilicals included. So if that's not the case, you can get that with your diode wiring, or if you have some used parts that you're repurposing, you can really fit your need. But at the end of the day, this is kind of the new trend and has been for a little bit for flat tows. You might remember some magnetic stick-on lights. Not many vehicles, including our aluminum F-150, are going to be magnetic. So this really keeps it nice and clean. It doesn't affect your factory wiring with those diodes in place. It becomes a electrical one-way check valve. So even backfeed, you're not going to have any issues. And also, this is something that's required for some braking systems to tap into. Today we installed the Demco Stay and Play Duo, which you do splice into diode wiring. So it does become essential. And at the end of the day, once it's installed, you plug it in and you're ready to go. So with that being said, the installation really does come down to just running wire from the front to the back, putting your 6-way plug in. Cutting that factory wiring can be a little bit scary, but I'll lay out the colors and show you step by step how to get it installed. Now, you don't have to be an electrical expert to get this installed, so if you're following along and doing it at home, you shouldn't have any real problems. Biggest thing is you're going to be underneath your truck for a little bit, but if you watch this and decide this isn't something you want to tackle, you don't have the place, the time, the tools, or even the want to get it installed yourself, you can get this installed. Finding someone close to you with our dealer locator is going to allow you to find a shop that can get your diode wiring installed, and that way you can be out on the road. Also a good chance to get the rest of your components installed. So with that being said, let's take a look at this install, and that way we can get our diode wiring ready to rock. To get diode wiring installed really isn't that hard to do. It's essentially just running our 4 wires from the front of the vehicle where we mount up where our 6-pole is going to be, all the way to the taillights where we'll splice into them, and then we'll come back and get a plug in. So starting off, make sure that you have your base plate already installed. If you have your fascia still off, that's a great time to do it because here on our Roadmaster base plate, we have a mounting bracket where our 6-pole is going to go. So I just taped up our wires a little bit excess. That way we can tie that into our plug. You'll see this red wire, that's part of our charge line. And this is something you're going to want to add in at the same time as diodes. It's going to trickle charge the battery as you go down the road. Now, depending on your braking system, you may or may not have to run this up into the engine bay to where you can splice in. I would always recommend doing that just to have extra wire. If you ever need to pull out some slack or put a new plug, it's always nice to have that, and that way you don't have to splice in new wires. So I taped this up to our bracket, and we are doing a Stay and Play Duo from Demco, which does require tapping into the diode wiring. So from here, I routed this up into our engine bay. Now, as I routed it up, I really just tried to zip tie it along so it's not going to be loose, but our white wire, I peeled a ton of it back, and then eventually I cut and put a ring terminal to ground our wiring. And I like to use factory grounds and generally like to use the same exact spot for the rest of my flat tow components, because if you have a ground issue, you can trace it back to that one spot, and using a factory ground is generally going to be a great option to make sure that it's going to work properly. So I cut that white wire back, attached this, and all of that excess white wire is going to work for us a little bit later on as we run from one side of the vehicle to the other for our running light signal. So all of that excess wire, hold on to that, we will use it. From here I just continued on. You can see I do have a little bit of a loop here, so as I run my braking system I'll be able to tie into these wires, and then from here I just routed this down, making sure that I had a clean path it's not going to get caught on any suspension, any moving parts, or exhaust. So from here, I routed it back, so I'll raise up the truck and show you the path that I took. From the engine bay, I routed mine to the outside frame rail. It makes it a super easy path to run this back. That way you're really not having to be under the vehicle the whole time. So just zip tie it up occasionally, route it through some of the wire loom and wires, and that way it's going to support itself. Now, once I got to the rear bed near the gas tank, we do need to start splitting this off to each side of the vehicle. So we'll head under and I'll show you how I did that. Now, I left my zip ties on so you could see exactly where I zip tied it up. And from here, we start splitting our wire. So our green needs to go to the passenger side. So I split that, and we have our exhaust here. So just trying to make sure that we don't make contact. But eventually I ran this up over the cross members and made my way to the pocket where our taillight, we can at least pull these wires up. Now, the yellow and brown wires I kept together, that's going to be for our left turn and our running lights. This one, I just zip tied it up to our orange cable and then made my way to the pocket as well. Now, I mentioned that white wire that we salvaged. I have a large run of it. I'm going to go from both sides of the vehicle. So I need to go to the taillight pocket and route the wire across. And that way we can jump from one running light signal to the other. So this really becomes handy having this extra length, and really as long as you zip tie this up either along this wiring or along the hitch, and we have plenty of wire for each side, we should be good to go. So I'll get this in place, and then we're going to need to take our taillights out and get these wires pulled up so we can start attaching it to our diodes. We'll take our taillights out. We're going to need an 8mm socket. There's 2 screws that we're going to take out, and we should be able to pop the taillight out fairly easily. And there's going to be some alignment tabs that these kind of hold into place, but if you just peel this back, our alignment tabs are kind of at a 45 back there. So just pull that out at that 45. If you're struggling, you can put a trim panel tool. Just be careful on the edge of the taillight. You don't chip it, and it should pop out. Sometimes just giving it a wiggle will do that as well. And what we're going to do now is unplug our taillight. And we can get our other side at the same spot that we're at here. And what we're going to do is peel back this wire loom and tape, and that way we can gain access to the wires that we're going to be splicing into for our diode wiring. Now, I went ahead and tested our light functions to figure out what wires we need to tap into, and being that we have 2 different plugs, we're going to be using the dark gray, the smaller one with the 3 wires, and at our top position where our clip is, we're going to find that we have a white with green, and then we have a green with orange, and these are going to be the ones that we tap into. So cut back that wire loom and tape, just peel that back, and give yourself plenty of room here, because when we attach the diodes, it's nice to be able to tuck those back and still have this plug in. So once you peel that back, grab those 2 wires, and we're going to cut them, and we're going to strip back all of the ends. And these wires are really small, so I like to strip back extra, and that way we can twist it together and kind of coil it over on itself to get a little bit more bite into our spade connectors. So we'll strip back all 4 ends first. And then you can grab the spade connectors from your diodes, and we're going to be using all the blue ones. So grab 4 blue spade connectors. And we're going to crimp down those spade connectors on each wire. So again, I'm just bending this over. You can see it's a little bit thicker than this, and that's going to really make for a better connection and bite on our spade connectors long term. And with each of these, as you crimp them down, I would suggest giving it just a slight tug to make sure that it's really on there, because otherwise you may be tracing a loose connection and you may think it's connected, but just making sure that we take care of that now is going to be key. So that one's on. I'll continue by putting the other spade connectors on my remaining wires. With those connected, we can start putting our diodes in place, and you're going to see that we have 2 male ends on the in and 1 on the out. The out is going to go towards our plug. So the 2 wires that are still attached to the plug, we're going to put 1 diode on each. And on the other end, you can pull off your other spade connectors, we're going to just connect same color wires. So the orange and green is going to attach to the orange and green. And you can choose either one up top, it doesn't matter. And we've made our first connection. So the hard part of cutting into factory wiring, we got that out of our system. So at this point, we need to pull up the wires that we ran back to be able to tap in. And you can see a clear hole down there. It's a little tight, so what I'd recommend doing to make it a little bit easier is just get a pull wire or something that you can feed through there. And that way you can tape the wires up, pull it up, and it'll make it a lot easier than trying to feed it up by hand. Now once you have the wires pulled up, it's okay to have some excess. Just make sure that after we have it installed, you zip tie up the wires so they're not loose below. And you can also trim them up as necessary, but try to leave yourself a little bit of slack. And from here, we're going to be attaching our white wire, that was that jumper that we peeled off, to our brown wire. And that way we can get running lights not only on the driver's side, but also the passenger side. So you might have noticed that there's a yellow spade terminal, and that's for a larger diameter wire. And that is so we can attach these together. So strip them back, twist them together, grab your yellow spade connector, and crimp that on. And since this is running light signal, after testing our wires, I found that the green with the orange is our running light signal. So we're going to just attach this onto that diode. And that leaves this other one, the white and green, to be our yellow, which is our stop and turn. So we'll strip this back, put it on our blue spade connector, and attach it to this diode. Now that we have these all connected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the double-sided tape off of one diode and just stack these together. And you can see I zip tied up my excess wires, but what I want to do here is make a wire strain. That way these don't pull out. And I found the best way to do that is just take electrical tape and wrap this all around. That way these really can't be disconnected, and we can put those in the pocket and get them all hooked up to the taillight without worry of them falling out. Another thing you can do is, you're not really exposed to a ton of weather, but if you wanted long-term to make sure these connections don't come off, you can put RTV silicone around all of the connections, and that's really going to hold it tight and keep a nice watertight seal from any moisture. So I'll get that all gooped up, taped up, and then we can put this back in place, hook up our taillight with both plugs, and then we'll head over to the other side. Our passenger side is going to be very similar. Colors are going to change, but we ran our green up. That kind of replaces our yellow for the right turn, and our white is that running light signal. So running lights, as far as the factory wires go, are going to be brown with yellow. So we'll make sure we get our white wire to that. And then for our stop and turn, which is our green, that's going to be the purple and violet. So make sure you get those wires spliced. We'll get this all gooped up, taped up, put our taillights back in, and then we can head up to the front, and I'll show you how to get the 6-pole all wired up properly. Now to get our plug attached is actually fairly easy to do, and as I mentioned previous, if you have a charge line that you're going to be putting in, we're going to be doing this at the same time. So at least have the red wire be able to attach to the 6-pole, and make sure it's not hooked up to the battery yet because we don't want power going through here. To start this off, we'll take our boot off of our plug and just slide this back. And then our plug looks like this on the back side. It's just some Phillips head screws that tighten down to get the wires attached, and there is a proper method to get these all in the proper spot. And you can see the molded letters. Those are going to denote where they go. So in order to get these in place, you're going to want a small Phillips head screw and back it out to where you can feed the wire in, but don't take it out completely. These are super small. If you drop them, they are not easy to find or thread back in. So just back it out enough. And we'll start with our charge line wire. I'm going to strip this back. You can do about 1/4 of an inch. Sometimes you're a little bit better to have less trimmed off here because as you put them in those spots, you don't want loose wires hanging out and being able to make contact with other wires in the process. So get this pulled off. I already backed that screw out. I would recommend twisting your wires so you don't have any wild strands. And then feed that in. And you can see like ours is already pretty well bottomed out and you still have some excess wire. That's fine. but just kind of a point to show that you don't have to strip it back too far. And from here, we'll just tighten down the screw. And don't over tighten it because you can really break those wire strands and then your connection's not going to be good. So from here, I'm going to go to the corresponding spots, just stripping them and getting them attached. So I'll do that now, and then we can come back. I'll show you exactly where they go. So I got these all attached, and starting at the 12 o'clock position, you'll see TM. That's tail markers. That's going to be our brown wire, which is our running lights. GD is going to be our white wire. That's our ground. We have LT, which is left turn. That's going to be yellow. And RT is right turn, and that's going to be our green one. So just make sure that you have those all in place. And the S, you can use that for indicators sometimes. Predominantly, we don't use those in installations, but that's an extra port that can go to your 7-way. So if you had an indicator light for certain braking systems that run through that, using a patch cable, you could use this. But if you're not using that port, not to worry. So at this point, what we're going to do with RTV silicone, I'm just going to goop all this up, and that's really going to keep water and moisture from getting in here, especially for something that lives on the front of your vehicle. I mean, you're going to be driving through probably all kinds of weather, whatever life throws at you, and this plug is going to see every bit of that. So really gooping this up to make sure that it's going to be sealed up is going to really help prolong that. So just make sure that you're filling it all up. And then what we'll do is take our boot and slide this down. And you can backfill this with RTV if you want. I think ours is sealed up pretty well. And then what I like to do is also grab our wire loom and get this clean looking. So just cut a length to where you can run this back and you won't see any of the colored wires once it's installed. And once they're slid in, you just pinch this end over end and then slide that in the boot. And that's going to seal that up at least. And then for our last little bit of protection, we're going to grab electrical tape and just wrap the whole thing up. And again, just to kind of seal that to where water really can't get in there. And then with that taped up, you're going to mount it up to your mounting spot. So ours being a Roadmaster, we get these two prongs, and self-tapping screws are going to get this mounted up. My license plate's slightly in the way, so I may have to bend my tabs a little bit. But something I would recommend doing, whether you are tying into your braking system or not, I would test your wiring to make sure that it's working properly before splicing into it. Don't give it any more variables than necessary. So to test this, you're going to grab your umbilical and hook that into the 6-way, and then on the 7-way on your RV, you'll plug that in, and then you'll run through the light signals, make sure that they're transponding to the back of the vehicle properly, and then from there, that's really going to do it for the diode wiring installation. So with that being said, I'm going to grab my test box and my umbilical, and we're going to see if it's all working. So you probably don't have a test box, but as I mentioned, you can use your RV. This is just going to simulate that light signal and transmit it to our diodes to make sure that it's working. So as we do this, you're going to want to go through the same sequence, including your running lights, your turn signals, as well as brake lights. So I'll be going through with our box and make sure that they work properly. So running through, we'll start with our running lights. We should have those lit up on both sides, and then we'll do our left turn signal. We'll do our right turn signal, and then finally our brake lights. Now that we've confirmed that the diodes are working properly, all that's left to do is get the rest of the flat tow components in place, and then once those are done, you can hook up your umbilical and you'll have light functions as you flat tow down the road. And that was a look and installation of the Roadmaster diode wiring on a 2024 Ford F-150.